So as Katie said, today we'll be talking about NX Part Families. So let's start with why you should use NX Part Families. Here are some key benefits that are important to consider when determining whether you should be using NX Part Families. So efficiency and consistency. It can help you streamline standard part creation from a single master model, which may take a minute to learn upfront, but will really save time in the long run. It can help with reduction in errors because you can generate multiple versions quickly and easily based on spreadsheet data. So it's eliminating room for human mistakes. And then finally, convenience in automated processes. NX Part Families will allow you to easily add standard parts to assemblies just by simply dragging and dropping, streamlining that process. And it's helpful to anyone who's using fasteners or creating piping, adding brackets, or really any kind of standard part in CAD. So in this presentation, we will get a little technical and discuss how to create NX Part Families. So as a general overview, you'd start with creating expressions in your first standard part, then creating the part family spreadsheet, generating standard parts, and then accessing them through your assemblies in the reuse library. And this image on the right here is the step-by-step that Siemens uses to break it down, which you can find an in-depth breakdown of each step in their help documentation. So today we will start with creating expressions and creating the first standard part. So the first step in this process is to create the standard model that all generated parts will be based on and identify the defining dimensions. So when we create the model, we will do so with the part family table in mind, assigning expressions to the relevant dimensions that are going to change with each iteration of the standard part. So my first step is to identify the list of parts that need to be generated and the drawing corresponding table of elements, table of dimensions that will define each similar component part. I like to begin with the dimensions data because it helps me to start thinking about the expressions I need to create. Some people like to start with the drawing and then go back and create the expressions afterward, which is a great method as well. So let's look at how to create expressions in NX. So hopefully at this point you can see my screen. We'll jump under the Tools tab into the Expressions command, and you can see I've already created a bunch of different expressions for this preliminary standard part. You'll notice too that some of these are in purple, and that means that the expressions are locked. So that helps protect from accidental changes and enforce design intent. And you can access that by jumping over to the status column, right-clicking, and then you can toggle on lock and unlock formula. So here you can create expressions for each of those defining values of your standard part. So those could be dimensions, features, thread types, units, etc. And you can confirm that they're saved here and then jump back into the model and the sketch to assign each expression to its correct dimension and feature. So let's close out of this. So where do we use these expressions? We will incorporate these expressions when creating the first standard part. So we will create the first standard part by using the expressions to define attributes and features that will differentiate each generated component in the part family. So dimensions and features like threads or material assignment can all be defined via expressions. And we just went over the expressions command and how to access those under the tool tab. So now that we have our model, which if we jump into the sketch, let's just look at that really quick. we can see that all of these defining dimensions are created with expressions. So it makes it really easy to go back and edit, because I can just hop into the expressions table and change those and see it all in one place right here. And then even things like the thread features, which you can see here, this shaft diameter, thread size, thread length. If I highlight over that, you can see that those values have also been defined via expressions. So now that we have our model of our first standard part, what's next? So now that the sketch is complete and the model has been created, we can generate the part family spreadsheet. So this document will specify the varying dimensions for each iteration of the standard part. So you will, in the same tool tab, right next to expressions, you can select part families. And inside that command, you'll add expressions, features, and attributes. Under this available columns drop down, input the directory where you want the part family spreadsheet to be saved. Select create spreadsheet, and then the part family spreadsheet with all the columns added should appear. So you want to make sure that you're adding all the expressions, features, attributes, and things that make up the defining parameters of the part to the list of chosen columns so that it shows up in the spreadsheet. So let's look at that really quick. Back to NX, we've opened our part families command. You can see this DB part number and OS part number that just specifies for Team Center and on Windows or your operating system. And then you can select, I've already created this spreadsheet, but you could generate it under part family spreadsheet drop down as well. And it will take you to the Excel spreadsheet. Okay. So this is an example of what I have so far. You can see all of the attributes that I've added as my chosen columns, and then I've specified all the correct formulas and dimensions for each iteration of my standard part, down to the part name, thread type, thread classification, and thread engagement, length, all that stuff. To save, go to add-ins, part family, save family. So moving on, now that we have the spreadsheet, we can populate it, which we just talked about. So here's where you'd add your defining data, save and close. Then you can jump back to that part family command, highlight the parts you want to create, and select create parts. So let's just walk through that really quick. Back to NX. If I wanted to create these two parts, for example, I would highlight them, and then I would click this blue cross, which says create parts. And NX will generate those parts. And if it's successful, I should get an information window. Okay, the last thing I'd like to talk about is the reuse library. So in order to have that really convenient drag and drop, you have to create a CAREX file to use the reuse library. And you can access that in that reuse library tab. Right-click on the standard parts, select create CAREX file, and you can specify how you want those parts to be organized. And then they should show up in NX right here. So go to the reuse library. Here's my standard part. And then if I were in an assembly, I could very easily just drag and drop my standard part into the assembly. And I can see all of the attributes, and I can place it where I want to place it. Super easy and convenient. Okay, so in summary, we talked about how to create expressions in the first standard part, creating the part family spreadsheet, standard part generation, and finally the reuse library. One final thing I want to highlight is Saratech offers training curriculum. So if you want to dig a little deeper into part families or any other topic, there are training courses available to help meet your needs. Saratech offers training programs in NX, Team Center, Sim Center, and Solid Edge that can be customized to ensure the right training solutions for you. So you can use this link to see the courses that are already on the calendar, but just know that custom dates are also an option. And with that, thanks so much for listening. And if there's any questions, I'd love to take them. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Allie. We do have one. You guys are welcome to throw some more questions in the chat if you have them as well. One question we have is, are there any expression names that you cannot use as a parameter, such as letters or a number preceding anything?
So it would just depend on the type of expression, whether that's a string or whether that's just a normal value. Some, I think, special characters you can't use, but for the most part, you can just change the type of expression and input anything.
Awesome.
Great question. Thanks for asking.
And then one more question. Can you use a pre-existing spreadsheet to create a part family?
So yes, you if you have the relevant data on a pre-existing spreadsheet, then you can use that to create the part family. Instead of creating a new one from scratch, you can just import your pre-populated one into the NX master part, and just confirming, of course, that the column headers match your expressions. So yes.
Awesome.
Thank
you so much. Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Allie. And thank you all for joining us today. This session, along with all of our other sessions, are available on our YouTube channel. So feel free to subscribe to discover more helpful and original content. And if you have any additional questions or comments, you can include them in the survey right after, or email us at info@saratech.com. We appreciate you being here. Have a great day, and let us know if we can do anything for you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.